My name is Jennifer Morris. I am with MadCap Software, and I want to thank all of you for joining today. Today's session is going to focus on 6 positive business outcomes when using MadCap Software's solutions. And I'm so excited to welcome Carrie Tolman, Product Development Acceleration Manager at MSA Safety, which is a leading manufacturer of safety products and equipment designed to protect workers exposed to a variety of hazardous conditions in so many different industries. And I'm so honored that she's here with us today because this is a fun and important case study to share, because being an agent of change within your organization and team can be challenging. And as a leader within an organization or a team, it can sometimes be tricky to decide if it's time to switch to a new platform. And sometimes it's more than just deciding on new technology. It can involve a whole new way of thinking about how to manage content, just as the basics. So Carrie's going to share a bit about their journey and the key factors that led to a successful implementation of MadCap solutions and all of the goodness that's resulted from that change. And so we're going to talk about identifying that need for change and involving your team in the solution. How do we implement that heavy lift of that mindset change and the behavior changes that sometimes have to happen? How do we determine some manageable bottom line goals and results? And also, how do we ignite that virtuous cycle of improvement? Because we know content management is not a one-time thing. It's often an iterative process. So how do we do that? So much fun stuff to talk about. Welcome, Carrie. I'm so happy to have you here. It's always great to connect. Before we jump in, I have 2 things I want to cover for everybody before I turn it over to Carrie. First, of course, this webinar is going to be recorded. It's going to be on our website probably later today, and we're going to email it out to everybody who's registered. Also, there is a question panel in this GoToWebinar console. Please use this as a place to ask questions as we go. So if you're seeing something, you're wondering about it, drop it in that question panel, please. We're going to do our best to get to as many as we can at the end. And whatever we don't get to live, we'll follow up with the question and answer document for everyone a few days later. So please keep those questions coming. We would love to hear them. So Carrie, I know you got lots of stuff to talk about today. Thank you again for being here. I'm so happy you're here. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Great to be here. And thank you to everyone for joining the webinar today. I really am excited to share our journey with you and hope that you have some takeaways and insights that help you in whatever organization that you're in. So I've broken up this presentation into 3 sections. To get started, I wanted to share just enough business context so that you understand enough about our operating environment so that you know how to relate or where there might be important differences compared to your business operating model. Then I'll tell our story in terms of some classic software implementation pitfalls and how we avoided them, and especially how MadCap Software helped us as well avoid those pitfalls. And finally, this is, of course, about the positive business outcomes we achieved as a result of implementing MadCap Software. So I promise we will get to that, but those are all held to the end. So some helpful context. Before jumping into the details of our journey, I just wanted you to understand a little bit about myself and the business environment that we're in. So first off, and this is probably more of a disclaimer, I am not a technical writer. So in my role, I'm focused on continuous improvement of our business processes, which often means I am not the expert, and that is certainly true in this case. I have a team of technical writing experts that report through me, and I know enough about topic-based authoring in MadCap to be helpful, but don't expect a lot of details around how we structured our global projects or how we manage conditional text. This really is a leader's perspective on implementation. And if you are not in an industrial, construction, or fire service safety space, you have probably never heard of MSA Safety. We have been around since 1914, actually, when we invented the first intrinsically safe mining cap lamps. So up until that invention, miners actually wore open flame lanterns on their helmets, which resulted in explosions when that came into contact with combustible gases. So we're all about safety innovation since day one in 1914, but we've expanded into far more than just the mining industry. But our mission, which is to ensure people may work in safety and live in health throughout the world, has largely remained unchanged. And finally, as you can imagine, making safety products, our user instructions are an important legal and compliance aspect of our product. And so in 2020, we began to transition to MadCap software to manage our user instruction content. And just a quick legal disclaimer here, the information and opinions that are being shared as me, Carrie Tolman, an individual, and not on behalf of the company. So let's face it, change is scary, right? Not just because it's spooky season, but it's because over half of software implementations fail. I guess that most of us on this webinar have probably been through at least one software implementation that didn't go as planned or maybe fell short of the intended benefit. Or maybe you've been through an implementation that was considered a success, but by absolute brute force, leaving a lot of people feeling burned and not really excited for the next software project. But in 2020, if you're a leader and you're trying to take your team to the next level to improve performance and drive value for your customers, most likely software is going to be a part of your improvement strategy. The good news is that many of the pitfalls that cause software implementations to fail are very manageable. I think MadCap software helps you also manage those pitfalls. And then our approach to our implementation in particular really, I think, demonstrates how we avoided those pitfalls and made the overall transition a little less scary. So software pitfall number one, I'm a leader, I consume a lot of leader content, but despite, Simon Sinek and so many books, TED Talks, podcasts, all describing how important knowing your why is, it's still something that I've seen skipped in the process of software implementations. And honestly, it's understandable because your why probably highlights some shortcomings. So it really is a confrontational discussion to have. In my experience, it goes a lot better if you are transparent, being data-driven where you can, while also being considerate of the team members involved. So for us, our why started with acknowledging that despite our best efforts, we were barely keeping up with our internal customers' expectations. The reason for that is the company had made a number of acquisitions which exponentially increased the amount of content we had to manage, and yet our team did not grow. So you might be facing a similar situation. We also were experiencing more frequent and broad sweeping product standard changes that often require a mass update of all of our manuals. When I first came into this role in 2019, I was getting a lot of feedback, verbatims from internal customers, but then also dug up some cycle time data on how long was it taking us to turn around requests. So I used both of those sort of data points, anecdotes, and the data to sort of level set with the team and be transparent that, hey, that our customers need more from us. There was also a human element to our why. Prior to MadCap software, our team members were not able to manage the creation and revision of content directly. We were serving as coordinators essentially between our internal customers and an external vendor. And all of that back and forth, chasing people on both ends of the process, and ultimately not being able to directly control either timeline was leading to some firefighting burnout. And lastly, there was also a technical aspect to our why. The system we were using was not compatible with the server upgrade that IT was wanting to make. So this system was also the reason why that we were forced to use that third-party provider. So no one on our team had been trained on using this system. It was fairly complex with very little support from the software provider. And upgrading was going to incur some costs. So this was really our opportunity to evaluate if we wanted to keep it or pivot. And like I said, our why is probably going to be somewhat confrontational. There's some gap between where you're at today and where you need to be. And if you have team members that have been a major part of the current process or the current system, it's really important to honor the past and how the past efforts have helped you get to where you are at today and will actually help you in your change. So for us, although the system was outdated and the process was no longer serving our need, it provided a good foundation for us to pivot from, since we had at least half of our content in a standardized format that would make it easier for us to transition to a new platform. So moving on to software pitfall number 2, jumping to a solution. This is so easy to do, but if you haven't painted what done looks like, then you really kind of are setting yourself up for failure. Especially important is getting your team's input on that goal up front. As I mentioned previously, one of the reasons that we weren't able to meet our customers' expectations was we were working entirely through a third party that was adding a lot of time to our cycle time. We only had one full-time person dedicated to our account, with very limited support from a second person, really just while that first person was on vacation. So it was truly a bottleneck situation. And our team members actually voiced wanting to have more control over project timelines. And it was pretty clear that having fewer handoffs to the third party was going to help us reduce that cycle time. So we made that our goal. Our goal was to have team members able to support content creation requests directly. And we actually had all of the selection of what software we looked at, and that entire process fully team member led. From that goal, and based on some of our whys, we established a few KPIs that we used throughout the implementation and actually still monitor today. We wanted to reduce cycle time, increase same week turnarounds, and to offset cost of implementation, we needed to reduce our external achievable goals, because we weren't being forced to spend money and make an upgrade. We were gonna make an upgrade either way. So I didn't really see a need to make the target overly aggressive, but spoiler alert, you will see in the business outcomes that the team really knocked some of these KPI targets out of the park. As a team, we also came up with some criteria that we use to evaluate different software options. Easy to use was super important because most of our team members were essentially starting from scratch in terms of help authoring tools. Some people had experience using Quark and Adobe, but it was pretty limited. So having a platform that was widely used and made it easier for us to also recruit new team members and find temporary help that didn't really need much training, could really hit the ground running, was really important to us. We actually love that MadCap particular partners with universities, and they actually helped us connect with one of those schools, and this person has since graduated, but they still work for us part-time on the weekends, helping us manage some of that content. So not only was that part of our criteria, we actually benefited, and they helped connect us with some people that we're still working with today. Translation is also a huge topic for us and was important in our evaluation phase. We use a third-party translation provider, and that company, we have a corporate contract with that company. So it's really important that we could use lingo to export the particular file types that we needed to leverage the very big translation memory that we have with that third-party translation provider. At the time we were looking at options, back in 2020 or late 2019, we noticed that some help authoring tools were really focused only on HTML publishing, which wasn't going to work for us because we were still printing all of our content or putting PDF on CDs at that time. We knew we eventually wanted to transition to more online publishing through HTML, but we really needed something that was going to do both. And finally, we wanted a tool that had high quality end user support. This is going to be a lot of change for our team members. Like I said, they were starting from the ground up, and it was really important for us to feel very supported and that the software provider was really committed to our success. So software pitfall number 3, kind of summarizing as trying to do it all yourself. And honestly, we may have fallen victim to this one if we hadn't attended the 2019 Mad World Conference in Dublin. For me as a leader and a non-technical writer, it was really helpful for me to learn the language of the software and understand what we should be thinking through in terms of the implementation planning. It was an awesome conference. I can't wait to attend again. But this week in particular, towards the end of the week, they hosted a really nice tour and dinner at the Guinness Factory where you got to mingle with other technical writers. And I asked some of them, because they were far more experienced than we were with content management systems in MadCap. I asked them if they could do anything over, what would they do differently? And many people said they wish they had gotten help creating the style sheets and the global project structure using consultant help. That was just, even with their level of experience, so much to do. So that's exactly what we did. I just took their word for it, and thanks to the Mad World Conference, met Scott Deloach at Quickstart and partnered with him to help us accelerate that adoption. We did factor in that additional spend into our KPI target, so that 15% I shared included recouping that consultant spend. But I really don't think we would have come to that conclusion of using Quickstart on my own without attending that Mad World Conference and getting to mingle with the other MadCap software users. And as I mentioned before, most of the team was not experienced in help authoring software, but because MadCap was so widely used, we were able to hire freelance technical writers during the implementation process who helped provide additional capacity to the team and really helped us sort of perfect our internal processes with the software itself. I also don't want to overlook here that through the Mad World Conference, that's where we also learned about the Platinum support, and from day one, we have signed up for that and continue to use it. It's excellent, highly recommend. Even if you're not using it, every week, the point is when you do need it, it's there and it's really high quality because you don't want to shut down production of your content publishing. So software pitfall number 4 is really a biggie. It can take, depending on your internal processes, and ours is no exception, it can take a really long time to get the cybersecurity, to get the budget, and it can feel like you're done because of all the work that you've put in when you finally get to purchase the licenses and install them. But implementation is not purchasing the licenses. It is not signing the team up for training. Implementation is really the weeks and months after that when the work is transitioning to the new platform. So unless you're a business starting from scratch, if you are implementing MadCap or any software really, you probably can't just stop what you're doing and focus on the implementation. You have to keep day-to-day afloat while carving out time to transition. And even if your team is on board and gets excellent training, which MadCap offers, it's still a mindset and behavior change that has to be worked through and that you as a leader need to support. So for us, before MadCap, team members what were the behaviors? Before MadCap, there was a lot of work coordination. Their day was filled with emails, messages, chasing. One team member described to me that their day was like the whack-a-mole game. At the end of the day, the more moles they whacked, the more productive they felt. And that really had to shift from the whack-a-mole mode to more content management mode and a more strategic mindset. Content management mode itself requires much more focus and time increments that are longer than shooting off an email. You know, you need more than 10 minutes to go in and make changes and publish your content. So they weren't used to that, and I had to help them prioritize and focus their time and had to have ways of visualizing our progress. So the way I did that is we happen to use Jira as our ticketing software. So what you're looking at on the left here is a portion of our Jira tickets, just the labels feature, which is actually a default feature. And we created special tags that help the team know what the flare status of any particular document was. And in our weekly huddles, our dashboards would show what % of our content was in Flare versus other platforms. And this transparency really helped drive accountability without needing so much brute force. When you have team member engagement because you've involved them up front and they understand your why, if you give them a way to visualize their progress, they're going to manage themselves and use that visualization as a, you know, their own kind of gamification and incentive. So actually, we just had our huddle today and brought this up again because, you know, like I said, we're over 100-year-old company. We will always have a little bit of content here and there. We have to be very strategic about how we manage our content, but this is something that helped us during implementation and we continue to use today. So last pitfall before the business outcomes, I promise. I've seen this pitfall on other software platforms more so than what we did with MadCap, but I thought, you know, this was kind of important to our implementation and wanted to share this tip as well. So most softwares offer a ton of features and benefits, and MadCap is no exception to that. But going too feature-rich too soon can really bog down your implementation progress. As I mentioned before, when we implemented MadCap, we were 100% PDF or print and 0% online. Publishing HTML was entirely new for us, and there were lots of changes that we needed to go through, both internally to our group and align with external groups within the company. We didn't completely ignore HTML, and you'll see in our business outcomes, this is a key enabler now of our strategy, but we had a very targeted approach to how we would develop HTML content while we are still really coming up to speed and migrating to Flare. And this allowed us to focus on our main goal, which was transitioning the bulk of our content into MadCap, while also hitting, you know, we did achieve a major milestone of HTML publication, which is what you're looking at here with one of our products that is fully online. Okay, that was the last software pitfall. So now to the exciting stuff, the business outcomes. I'll start with the 3 KPIs that were a part of our implementation plan. So first, cycle time across the board was reduced by 20%. That's an entire day per week we deliver to our internal customers sooner. And I'm particularly proud of that metric because we have a wide range of requests that we get, and this 20% reduction is without any fudging or correction for things that, hey, this is an outlier project, it took so long. No, this is literally straight from our Jira dashboard showing what our ticket cycle time was from, you know, before 2020 to today. Then our same week turnarounds, those increased by 2.5 times. And this particular metric really resonated also with team member satisfaction. It feels better to be able to get something completely done within the work week and even surprise internal customers with how quickly something can get done. You know, as we were really like taking hold on MadCap software in our weekly huddles, team members would say, oh yeah, this person was so surprised that I could get this turned around in less than a day. You know, it's just that energy that that ignites someone, gives someone a lot of pride in what they do, and of course makes internal customers and external customers happy. And then our last metric on external spend reduction, if you'll recall, our target to break even with the change was about 15% reduction in external spend. This was a metric I didn't check that often. Honestly, if we were doing what we planned to do, transitioning to Flare, and our goal was to have team members be able to manage content directly, then we were clearly going to realize we were pretty confident in that 15%. So I was pretty shocked to see at the end of 2021 to see we had reduced external spend by 90%. And I'm not giving specific figures, but I will tell you it's multiple hundreds of thousands that we were able to save by bringing this content management in-house. I mentioned we also started to publish online and really focused on only a couple transitions to online during implementation, but now HTML publishing is really a key enabler of our sustainability initiative. We are transitioning away from CDs and printed paper where we can. Sometimes we can't, but where we can, we are. And already this year, that has helped us save over 4,000 pounds of plastic waste, and that's just the beginning. We're really excited about the environmental impact that we can make just within our technical documentation group. I'm also really excited about how HTML publishing and some of the MadCap Central data that we have access to is enabling us to gather data on content use that we've never had before. I mentioned we have a lot of translations, which are very costly and complex for us to manage. So one thing we're starting to look at is how the online published languages are used, and we'll use that data to inform how we should move forward with our translation strategies, what languages are actually used, which ones are used the most. Maybe we check quality on those more deeply. Just really great to have that depth of data and finally be able to use data to drive decisions around our languages. And really the most important business outcome is how switching to MadCap has provided development opportunities, igniting that virtuous cycle of improvement in both the team and for myself. The time savings that we have achieved, that 20% reduction, we reinvest that in our process. Team members now have time to tackle challenges that they never had time to before. Some of those challenges are topics they've been dealing with for a very long time. So I think it's tremendously gratifying to be able to move the needle and not only be an agent of change as a leader, but see them be agents of change as well. So with that, that is the end of my presentation. I think there were a couple things that Jennifer, you wanted to mention before.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. That was great. Great points. I just want to remind everybody, you mentioned this a little bit in the webinar, but for all of you on the call, in terms of that rubber hits the road, sort of get up to speed quickly kind of thing, if anybody's interested in attending this, I would like to just remind everybody that our introductory training class is free. It's $600 worth of training you get at no charge, and that's available to you even if you're trialing or if you're thinking about moving solutions. If you've been using Flare for some time, perhaps you're growing your team or you've got new folks coming on, this is also available to you and to those new team members that you bring on. So you'll get this deck, and of course this is on our website now, but it will certainly be available to you all with a click there. But we offer it a few times per month and in different time zones too, or at least we do our best to cover the world. So I would encourage you to check this out if it's something that you would like to share to anybody new that's learning about content management, learning about Flare, and who's going to be in it every day. I think it's important to see some of the important features that you got to get used to using day in and day out and become familiar with them. So would be remiss to not remind everybody that is a free resource for you. I think I'm looking at the question panel here. Couple of things that I wanted to ask. Looks like a couple questions here. Tell us a little bit about, you mentioned a little bit about the translation, but a question came in is, how did this whole thing affect your translation and localization and results? I know, my own, just anecdotally, I know that's an interesting bridge to cross when one is sort of a single language only, and then you got to think about global and multiple languages, and it can feel kind of insurmountable. How did this move to this, our solution and the platform, how did that affect your overall localization costs and budget and process?
Yeah, so well, first off, yes, translations is kind of the black box magic where even if you understand how it works with the translation memory, it's easy to get surprised by the cost of translation, even if it's been through the translation memory sometimes. So we were really concerned about how transitioning the MadCap software would impact our translation spend. And we've changed how we budget for that so we have better visibility internally. But and it wasn't going to be our focus during the implementation, but last year in our yearly review with that translation provider, we've actually cut or lowered our translation spend overall, which I was quite surprised by. So clearly moving to single source content management and the files that we're able to create using Lingo are really efficient within our existing translation process.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that I was frankly surprised. I was expecting it to go up a little bit. And the number of languages and the amount of translations we do is not decreasing. If anything, it's increasing. So
right,
that was the impact there.
Yeah, usually that's the case. Often those things go up, not down.
Yep.
How did you, a great question came in, how did you come up with your metrics? Did you have a history to gauge against, or did you go back and gather some metrics in some way? What sorts of tools did you use to gather metrics?
Sure, yeah, so like I mentioned, we have a ticketing system. There's lots of different ticketing systems, but ours is Jira. And Jira itself has some out-of-box dashboards, but we ended up exporting that Jira data into Power BI. And Power BI is another really transformational platform for data visualization. And so, cycle time was a no-brainer. I guess we just applied common sense. We knew we wanted to look at cycle time, and we knew that we had to track migration into Flare. So the way that we came up with as a team to do that was using labels. And because Power BI refreshes on a regular basis, it was, there was some management of that data, right? We have a weekly huddle. We'd pull up the dashboard. Oh, is this accurate? We can even see the tickets with the ticket details within the dashboard. So we would need to do, hey, okay, everybody make sure you have the right tags for your tickets so that we can use the data from the dashboard. But I'd say, cycle time was a no-brainer sort of metric that we knew we should look at. And then we developed the others just based on sort of practical needs for where we were at in implementation.
Okay, great. What kinds of, I know are you maybe just some anecdotal stories? And one question came in is, what does the rest of the leadership team think about the content that you're putting out there? Are you getting, after all this great work, are you getting feedback on what you're generating, just internally from your leadership team? What has that been like since you went through this kind of big change?
I think the thing that people are the most surprised about is how much our team is doing directly, especially since they had no experience in help authoring software prior to MadCap. So, the HTML style sheets, we developed those internally. When some of the other leaders are looking at, wow, this is a great, they call it the help portal. And it like as if it's something more like this help portal that this team got together and we, it's like, no, that's all published through our MadCap software, and these people that, have been a part of this Tech Docs team for 15, 20 years, they're the ones maintaining it. So I think they're really surprised at how much we can do within the team using the platform. And I'll say that I connected with someone this week in our fire service division that is doing some hands-on training. So I picked their brain of, oh, have you noticed, the online content? Or they're like, oh my gosh, I love the help portals. Everyone's calling it the help portal, which I think just speaks to, wow, it's such a better, we put little GIFs in there. We really put richer content, better user experience content in the HTML as well. And I know people are noticing that too.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, this has been fantastic. Carrie, this has been a great presentation. I really appreciate it. I know a lot of folks are enjoying this. So thank you so much for putting this all together. And yeah, I just want to remind everybody that we will be sending this recording out. So, keep an eye out for that. You'll be getting this deck that Carrie shared. So you'll have that for your resources. And Carrie, I just want to thank you again for putting this together and presenting for all of us today. This was great. And I want to thank all of you for joining and for being engaged. Thanks for all your great questions. And we hope you found this session helpful, and we hope to see you on another presentation shortly, and hopefully in the next Mad World. Keep your eyes peeled. We have an announcement coming very, very soon on next year's Mad World, so that's on its way. We're really excited about it, so keep your eyes peeled for that announcement coming. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you again, Carrie, for putting this together, and we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week.
Thank you.
Take care.